Greetings. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different from the norm. I'm going to speak about something that I don't normally do so very much. I tend to compartmentalize quite a bit of my life. I keep things very, very separate. As an example, everywhere I've ever worked, I've always gone by my birth name, even though most of the people in my area know me by a completely different name that I've had since college. I'm not sure exactly why I tend to keep things so divided, but I do. There is something that I wanted to kind of mention, just because I find it interesting. I am a gamer, and what I mean by that is something different from most people that make that claim these days. When I say I'm a gamer, I mean that I like to play tabletop role-playing games, much like Dungeons and Dragons, and sometimes in fantastical worlds like that. More often than not, the games that I tend to play are more modern, or possibly even somewhat futuristic. Of course, what that means is that each player creates a character. You have one person who is the main storyteller, the main person who devises what's going to happen in the world, and the players all state how their characters react. And if there are things that are left to chance, say someone needs to jump from one rooftop to the next, or you are in combat with somebody, you roll dice to make the determination of what happens. Some systems that's a very complicated thing, some it's much more simple. The main line of role-playing game that I tend to play, tend to run, tend to enjoy are from a company called White Wolf, and in the early 90s they began a series of games that took place in the same world. Those games are Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Changeling the Dreaming, Wraith the Oblivion, and which one am I missing? Oh, Mage the Ascension. These games all take place essentially in the same world. They focus on different things. The world itself, White Wolf describes as the world of darkness, and this is basically how they describe it, a gothic punk world, where even the people that you see every day, the very typical average type of people, even they are darker. The violence in the world is more widespread. The misery is more obvious. Things break down, things decay much more quickly than they do in real life. And as I said, these different games focus on different things. In Werewolf, the characters are shape changers, but they are protectors of the earth, protectors of the environment. It's kind of an odd mindset to put in. They were charged with protecting the earth by Gaia, the earth. So, in Wraith, of course, you are dead. You're a ghost, and so your existence is based on very much like the movie Ghost. You remain because you have unfinished business. You still have things you need to achieve. And there is a shadow self kind of inside your mind that is trying to drive you towards oblivion, towards completely getting rid of yourself, as if you had never existed in the first place. In Vampire, you're a vampire. It's not too not too deep with most of these, and they all take place in the same world, but usually don't interact very much between them. Today, I want to talk about one of the types of mages that one can play in the mage game. And even though one of White Wolf's games deals with vampires, even though one of White Wolf's games deals with ghosts and death extremely directly, the real love letter to goths that White Wolf created was a group of the mages. Mages are people in the modern world who are capable of performing magic. And this particular group are known as the Hollow Ones. And the Hollow Ones are, well, I'll read a few things from the book just to kind of let it describe itself. So this is before we even get into how to play characters, who are Hollow Ones, and whatnot. This is just kind of describing a bit about this tradition, this type of magician. The theme for Hollow Ones is eternal romance. Harkening to the themes of the famous romantic poets Byron, Shelley, Keats, and others, the Hollow Ones try to live their lives as embodiments of romanticism, creative, artistic, passionate, and ever ready to sacrifice themselves on the altar of individuality and romance. Tragically so. So you can probably tell right away why I feel that this was kind of White Wolf's love letter to goths. Hollow philosophy. This is actually part of an ongoing, throughout the book, conversation between different characters that are of this type of magician. You don't really seem like the others, Mark commented at one point. Baron eyed him suspiciously. What do you mean? Well, I don't mean any offense, Mark replied. I actually think I'm more like you than like, I don't know, Penny, for example. Nothing against Penny, but I'm not all that goth. The chuckle that rumbled out of Baron came with wisdom attached. He nodded. I see what you mean. Well, not all Hollowers dress like they've just come from Byron's funeral. Being a Hollow One isn't about dressing weird, it's about... He paused and took a deep breath. I always have a hard time, he confessed, expressing this. Being a Hollow One is about finding your own true self and having the balls to show it off. This takes place later on in the discussion. Baron shifted the subject back. If I had to choose two words to sum up the Hollow Tradition's philosophy, I think I'd choose individuality and courage. Courage? Mark perked up. Sure, Baron replied. It takes a hell of a lot of courage to be yourself in the face of criticism, and, in our line of work, even danger. If your soul is telling you that the real you loves skulls of all shapes and sizes and bones, and that you are a night creature, then it takes balls to give yourself over to that and be it. Here, it's no longer those two characters talking, it's just the description to the player of what Hollow Ones are like. More experienced members of the art are much more prone to encourage fellow Hollow Ones to find their own answers. At its core, a young mage finding her own way and constructing a unique paradigm is what being hollow is all about. Most veteran street magi realize that the answers that work for them will not necessarily work for others. If a Hollow One were to spread her particular perspective and start a trend in belief, then that Hollow One would no longer be unique. Creed and concrete traditions result when an awakened one tries to convert others. The fact that most followers do not even want others to see things their way often confuses mages whose goals involve finding the truth and sharing it with the world. Perhaps Hollow Ones simply realize how truly subjective reality is without needing to twist their part in it. Wisdom and enlightenment, fought for with sacrifices of blood, sweat, and tears, shouldn't be shared with some mundane moron who will not value it. It would be like giving away money to monkeys. To a Hollow One, when you share secrets of the universe with someone who does not understand them, you have effectively given up all personal meaning these insights have for you. This is actually something that I find interesting in the perspective of young goths seeking some kind of instruction or something from those who have been in the culture longer. And I feel that even without realizing it, this may be the perspective that a lot of those older goths who refuse to or don't like to do so hold. I think it's because they realize that goth isn't the same for everyone, that each person's individual experience within it is that individual's version of goth. So it's kind of an interesting parallel, I think. Clique politics and Hollow One society. If there is any one aspect of the Hollow Way that is most misunderstood by other mages, it's the politics of the Hollow One society. Hollow Ones do not have mentor-apprentice relationships the way other paradigms do. How could every magic style be unique if the older, more seasoned Hollow Ones were teaching the younger ones all their experiences and lessons? This driving principle of individuality is what, in many ways, gives the Hollow Ones their identity. The total lack of doctrine is what gives the street mages their versatility and advantage over other mages in the world. It's up to every Hollow One to figure things out for herself in a way that makes only sense to her. So a continuation of that. Within this game, as mages create their magic, they will use tools to make it easier to do so. And so they list some examples of tools that would work well for Hollow Ones. Makeup. The ritual of putting on your face is common and acceptable as a form of mentally readying oneself for a situation. Clothing. Leather jackets painted in all manners of sayings or symbols, or even full leather trench coats are common for males. Cloaks, special soul self-symbol necklaces, and even dresses or pairs of magic boots are common among females. Tattoos. Jewelry. Symbolic trinkets. Pop occultism, such as channeling, seances, runes and sigils, astrology. All of these are just different things some of the Hollow Ones use. Not all of them use all of those focuses. And again, it's very individualistic. Another interesting thing is they talk about familiars in this book more than most other books, and recommended familiars for Hollow One characters: cats, rats, snakes and lizards, crows and ravens, owls, and dogs. They have some examples of the specific spells that some Hollow Ones tend to use. There's one called antiquing, which it's kind of interesting because a lot of people would probably expect most of the magic that they utilize to center around combat or things like that. I mean, you even see that in Harry Potter. Most of the magic there is based on confrontation, unless it's very small cantrip-like things like the Weasley's house, when Harry comes there for the first time and he sees the dishes doing themselves and things like that. I always have kind of had an appreciation for those little extra things, the ones that aren't based on confrontation. I find those more interesting. So we have antiquing. One may wonder, after exposure to Hollow Ones, how these usually unemployed vagabonds always manage to have the coolest goth stuff. The insides of their downtown crash pads, studio apartments, seem covered with trinkets and decorations that came straight out of a Hollywood monster movie set. Just how these street kids afford all the antique candelabras and hearses with black-tinted windows while sleeping all day and not playing the paycheck game is a Hollow One's secret. Antiquing allows Hollow Ones to find things in thrift shops, yard sales, and junkyards that may be completely non-functional, broken down, and or forgotten. The junk acquired through trade or minimal cash is then transformed through magic, thus turning someone else's trash into a Hollow One's magical treasures. There's one called Dark Streets, which allows the Hollow One to hide better at night in the street. Rooftop Leap, Summon Fog. They have a section on Hollow One Necromancy, speaking with ghosts and whatnot. Oniromancy, which is the magic of dreams and finding portents in dreams, whatnot. And I don't have anything else specifically from the rest of the book to read, but just wanted to kind of note that it's interesting the take that they have, the illusions that they draw between Hollow Ones and Goth. And well, it's just fun. If you ever get the opportunity to play in a mage game, this would be my recommendation for what you would look to play for your first character. Perhaps it's something that you could conceive of fairly easy. It's something that you don't have to learn whole cloth, because it's very close to the way we exist. So I hope that was at least somewhat interesting. Again, not normally something I share amongst my goth friends, but I hope it was at least mildly interesting. Thank you.